What's going on, everybody? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and I'm going to look at something very interesting today because some moderately spicy news came up about Nintendo over the last 24 hours or so. Now, I know straight away you're already thinking, oh no, Q's here going to shit all over Nintendo and the Switch again. That's actually not the case. In this video, believe it or not, I'm not here to talk about the Switch's subpar gaming performance, the late ports or no ports of third-party games, the lack of third-party support, Nintendo's terrible physical media system, or the Switch tax. No, I'm actually here to talk about something a little bit different today. So what Nintendo have actually started doing to try combat piracy is Nintendo have actually started banning game cards. Which is a very interesting thing for multiple reasons. We're going to look at them all in this video, but basically let me give you a quick overview of how this works. Historically, no matter what manufacturer, be it Microsoft, Sony, hell, maybe even Sega or Nintendo, if you had a modded or hacked console in any way, shape or form, and you tried to say go online and play multiplayer games or use a service that would check your console, and they found out you would have it, usually what they do is they would ban your console from the actual service. So if you had, say, a banned Xbox 360, you wouldn't be able to use Xbox Live. If you had a banned PlayStation 3 or 4, you wouldn't be able to use the PSN. You get the idea. You'd still be able to play all manner of games by putting the disc in the drive, or chances are, because you had it hacked, maybe even play it off an external hard drive or something along those lines. But historically, the console would be the piece of hardware that's actually affected here, with the ban placed on that. But Nintendo are actually taking something a little bit differently. What Nintendo are actually doing with Nintendo Switch is they're actually banning individual game cards. So essentially, they're banning individual copies of games to try combat piracy, which makes sense to an extent. For example, let's just use my random copy of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Just for argument's sake, every individual game, every specific game and every specific copy of said game has a very individual certificate. And this can be checked online by connecting to the internet and just playing the game. Believe it or not, yes, this is actually a form of DRM. But again, let's use my Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild as a random example here. Let's just, for argument's sake, say the specific key of my game is ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if I ever dump that card, meaning if I ever copy the contents of my game card onto a PC and then upload it to the internet and share it around and other people download that, the version they're playing will also have the same registry key and certificate. So again, when you look at their one, what they would have downloaded as a copy of mine, it would ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be exactly the same as mine. So what Nintendo have actually started doing is banning individual certificates, essentially banning individual copies of games. So let's say, again, my copy of Zelda was banned. I, 1, wouldn't be able to use my physical copy, and 2, anyone else who had downloaded the copy of mine that was uploaded to the internet would no longer be able to use that. Because even if 10,000 people had downloaded it, that would have been 10,000 copies of the exact same registry key and certificate. Now, hackers and modders and whatnot will probably find a way around this, as they usually do with things like this. But I do find it strange that they're individually blocking copies of specific games and specific copies of games, rather than just flat out denying the whole console with a ban through, say, the network or whatever. But here's where it gets a little bit interesting, and this next point I'm about to bring up is actually the main reason I wanted to make this video and talk about this. So because that individual copy of the game and a certificate of that specific game card is banned, it's not formed as a combination between a certain Switch and that certain copy of the game. It's individual to only the game card. Now, before I go in and explain the whole thing, let me give you a quick example of a happenstance and a random situation that could occur to lead to what we're going to talk about. So let's pretend for a moment I have modified and hacked my Nintendo Switch, and I could play whatever, downloaded games, copied games, whatever it is. And as you guys already know, I have half a dozen exclusive Switch games because there's nothing else to buy on it. But let's say some of my games get banned. Let's say my copy of Super Mario Odyssey was to be banned. Well, because I could technically no longer use that, I could bring that copy to GameStop, get it traded in, or maybe sell it on eBay or something along those lines. Now, let's just say I go to GameStop and I trade it in there and whatnot, and then, let's say a couple of months down the line, someone buys my old copy of Super Mario Odyssey. They go home and they can't play that, and it will give them the message of the banned software. You can see why this may start becoming a problem. Now, obviously, the amount of people who would, say, buy games, copy them, dump them, and upload them and share them and whatever is obviously a much smaller market and a very niche audience of the massive amount of Nintendo Switch owners out there. But the big problem is that a policy like this exists, and it could technically hit any game ever traded in, and that's when it becomes a problem. Yes, of course, when you buy it, you could bring it back if you find out it's banned to your GameStop or wherever it is, and usually there's probably something they can do. It's like, oh, well, I bought this game, it doesn't work because it's a banned copy. Here, we'll give you a different one. But places might start looking at it and thinking, okay, we don't want to take in games that may have policy issues like this. So it's very curious how this would affect the pre-owned market. I mean, the Nintendo Switch is already in a very precarious situation when it comes to the pre-owned market, with games not fully being on the card the entire time, and sometimes having to download the rest of the core base game from the internet, which brings up the whole thing of a couple of years from now when servers are turned off and you can't actually download the complete version of the game that you may buy pre-owned. There's a whole issue there within itself. But this just adds another thing on top of it. Now, some people out there, some cynics and skeptics and all, they may be thinking of, well, this could be Nintendo's sneaky, underhanded way of potentially combating the pre-owned games market. Personally, I don't think that's the case whatsoever, because the amount of people, like I said, that do this and the amount of cases of this that would pop up are so minuscule, if you ask me. But it does lead me to think of places that may have to think twice when it comes to their policy about taking Nintendo Switch games. As someone who's worked in a GameStop before, there is no way you can individually test out every single game when someone wants to do a trade-in. So once more cases of this whole thing come popping up a bit more frequently, I won't say it become the norm because they never will. But we're only hearing the first rumblings of it over the last couple of days. But once it happens more and more and more, I don't think it will ever affect anything to the largest degree, but I do want to see potentially what companies that take in pre-owned games and whatnot, what they might have to do, what they might change policy-wise to deal with this, and any cases and extra steps and whatnot. So what do you think anyway? Do you think Nintendo are doing the right thing by banning individual game cards that could then be sold on to another consumer through a pre-owned or second-hand merchant? Or do you think they should just ban the Switch? And how do you think this is going to affect the pre-owned market as well? And are you worried because maybe you've bought some pre-owned Switch games and who knows what has been done with them before? Maybe they'll be banned now, maybe they'll be banned a week from now, maybe they'll even be banned 6 months from now. Who knows? Anyway, let me know all that good stuff in the comments section below. Be sure to hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video. While you're at it, if for some reason you're not already subscribed, make sure to click that button and even turn on notification bells. Granted, YouTube probably still won't send you all the updates and notifications and whatnot, but hey, at least you can say you tried, right? As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.